what are we seeing to date? What were the big things that people wanted to talk to us about as we look at what COVID is doing to the food and beverage supply chain? First off, there's obviously shocks on the supply side. We are, of course, seeing labour shortages in our factories. Some of the workers are ill, some have to close down for sort of various reasons on that front. And that is actually switching off a little bit of the supply. We are also seeing input shortages. Whilst food in general and beverage is seen as an essential service, when talking to people, the whole supply chain isn't, say certain oils or packaging, and this can hit the food supply chain as a whole, and we have to be careful thinking about that full chain. And the last point on the supply side, and borders have never been our strongest point in Southeast Asia, is this has again been exacerbated by COVID. There's been sort of blockages of some key workers, some of the food going backwards and forwards. We've got to make sure that these borders stay open. Yes, governments are trying to do all they can to keep all of this through, letting labour work, keeping the different supply chains open and borders, but this is a key challenge for the industry. The second side is what we're seeing from a consumer demand point of view. Obviously, there's been panic buying, and this has been sort of up and down on different businesses. But to be honest, this sort of volatility doesn't help any of us, really, and we need to get that back down to manageable levels. We've seen this around the region with many restaurants having to close. Maybe an element can be done by delivery and takeaway, but this is so small in the grand scheme of things. So this hits both the businesses, the F&B businesses themselves, but also the food that goes into them. And then last, and this may get even worse post-COVID, obviously there is a reduction in consumer confidence, purchasing power. The economic shock coming out of COVID, especially for Southeast Asia, could be pretty significant. And that's something that we really need to keep an eye on. Again, governments are trying to boost this as much as they can, but this is becoming a very expensive job to do. So we hope that that will continue going forward, and for only needed to be a limited point of time. So the next page, this is based a little bit on the survey that we did, and also the interviews. The light pink shows impact to date, and this is the sort of the first quarter. Already people were seeing reductions both from a revenue margin point of view. Their expectation, if this continues for the rest of the year, we will easily be seeing further 10 to 15% reductions across all of these. At the same time, they will also have to start laying off people as well, as the sort of economic impacts come through. So this is something that we've got to really try and keep an eye on and try and prevent getting worse. And this is a big worry of many of the industry players in that regards. Because say if our businesses are hit, this also means that food supply is hit and what gets to consumers, and no one wants that coming through. If we think a little bit of what that might mean, or what we're seeing, some of the long-term trends, one is obviously accelerated consumer trends. We sort of always see this through a bit of an economic downturn crisis. Often things accelerate quicker than expected in the past, e.g. sort of online deliveries, both from a restaurant and say a grocery point of view. We are seeing this accelerate and will continue to do so. Changes in consumer demand, we also believe will change as well on that front. This links more generally to digitization of the business as a whole, whether that's automation within factories, a greater digitized supply chain and so forth. We'll need to see this sort of accelerate, and we are starting to see a lot of businesses look at this on that front. We talk a little bit about supply chain diversification. I think there needs to be a sort of a balance. Some people are saying, oh, we're going to see a lot more production just within country rather than wider supply chains. I think we need to see a continued balance of that, of very strong supply chains, both on a local, regional and global basis. COVID is just one type of scenario we may face. We've got to make sure that we're sort of adapt for everything else going on there. And then the last point is sort of bringing all of this together on an integration point of view. Actually, what we are seeing is that there's many sort of weak points or disconnects between the different points of the food supply chain. Going forward, this better needs to link up, especially across a region such as Southeast Asia, and in part some of the supply chain digitization work will do and help that.